All right, so FSSAI really amping up its governance of food items. Meanwhile, we also caught up with Nestle's CMD, Suresh Narayanan. In fact, he stated that there was no additional sugar in infant formula. But let's revisit what the CMD told ET Now in an exclusive conversation just yesterday.
The level of added sugar in our product is at 7.1 grams per 100 grams of product, when the FSSAI standard is 13.6 grams for 100 grams of feed. So our standards are at almost 50% of what the FSSAI specifies. The company has in the last 5 years made a progress of reducing by almost 30%. I'm looking at further ways of reducing the amount of added sugar that I've got.
And of course, to discuss this issue further and whether it's just an overhaul as far as guidelines related to added sugar and salt is concerned in packaged foods, or an overhaul of the food ecosystem is needed. Packaged foods ecosystem, the sector is needed. We're now joined by Rekha Agarwal, consumer advocate, to discuss this further. Ma'am, thanks very much for joining us this evening. Now, you also heard the Nestle CMD stating that they're very much keeping up with global standards in India as well on reports of cerelac containing excessive sugar. MDH also stated that the order from Singapore Health Authority is a standard process. So what is the problem then? Is it the problem of law being inadequate or an ineffective regulator, which is only reactive, it seems?
I would probably say over here that there is no dearth of laws in our country, and the laws are certainly not inadequate. It is just the question that there is no willpower to adhere to the rules and regulations under the especially under the guise of conflicting rules and regulations that may be there between one country and another country. So I think that this controversy which had arisen very recently about the added sugar content in the baby food milk, particularly milk cerelac, which is sold very, very extensively all over the world by a reputed company like Nestle. So there was a lot of course, hue and cry, as was expected. I heard the CMD of Nestle speaking right now, and I do appreciate what the step that they are taking and the clarification that they have made. But I would probably say that wherever there is the question of safety, food safety that is concerned, people, especially the companies, some companies, I will say, I will not all brand them under one umbrella. They've got a very lackadaisical attitude towards the health conditions of the consumers. After all, the consumers are the ones which are making the industry run. But if the manufacturers or the big companies, particularly the multinational companies, are going to take the consumers for granted, they just want to sell and sell. And just do business. So if you take the health of the consumers for granted, you are certainly looking at very short-term gains, and you have to look in the longer run so you can inspire confidence among the people. So having said that, I will say that, in our country, right, we have a very stringent Consumer Protection Act. Earlier it was in 1986. And
so, ma'am, when you say that we have stringent laws, then my next question really is about, is it implementation that really is a challenge, which really then emboldens manufacturers? What are those implementation challenges and how can they really be fixed? I'll give you a very simple example. You open various social media platforms and you will find influencers selling health gummies to boost energy and to have great hair and great skin. How is it that those influencers are selling those items, those gummies or whatever health supplements that they call, so freely? Either they don't know, which is again a problem of the regulator really being able to spread education and spread information about these products, or like I said, it's an implementation problem as far as the rules are concerned, since you say that there is no dearth of rules in our country.
I'm glad you brought up the name or the product gummies. The moment you open any social media platform, you will see that these gummies, gummy bears, particularly gummy bears, in the name of improving the health of your children, these are being sold extensively, marketed extensively, and unfortunately or fortunately, I will say that we have a constitution which gives you the freedom of speech and expression. It also gives the freedom to do your business in a legal manner. Now, none of the fundamental rights that any individual has or any company has is absolute. there is what is called public responsibility. So these influencers, who are trying to influence you and brainwash you into buying a particular product, thankfully, even as far as the Information Technology Act is concerned, I would like to mention that over here, they have laid down certain, transparency requirements by these influencers that whenever they are marketing or, or trying to, propagate the use of a particular product, they must say that it is a paid promotion. So the moment I think that, the industry cannot work in isolation, the consumer and the industry, all the, what I will say, the stakeholders have to become more active. And you cannot just sit back, like a dummy and say like, oh, I don't know anything. Nowadays in today's age, of the internet.
Right. Absolutely. I completely agree that it is as much the responsibility of those influencers, those companies that are tying up with those influencers, as much as it is of the regulator. But ma'am, I have to ask you about this. Now the FSSAI is, according to what my colleague was reporting, that they might come out with revised set of guidelines for added sugar and added salt content. But do you see it as a problem that maybe a timely revision of these guidelines is really not happening?
I do not see that, I think I would really welcome this move. It is not as if we did not have this regulation and guideline earlier. Earlier also, the FSSAI, in fact, way back in 2019 itself, there were regulations that wherever there is a high quantity of sugar or salt, or even a very high oil content, for example, palm oil, which may not be very good for your health. So all these things should be highlighted on the package. So, but despite these regulations being there, everybody is flouting these rules with impunity. And I think that the need of the hour has come that now FSSAI should make all these rules in a very simplified manner, not only for the industry, but also for the consumers, so that the moment the consumer sees a particular package, there should be a certain, color coding. In fact, FSSAI, if I may recall, had said that all these products with high sugar, salt, or oil content must have a red coding on it. So the buyer has to beware before just being attracted by a fancy package.
I have to ask you this, and we're running a very short of time. I have to ask you, when you say that there is a revision and guidelines is needed, the FSSAI is likely to come up with guidelines as far as added sugar and added salt content is concerned. But which other sectors should the FSSAI look at with priority?
I think that, other sectors, I did not understand exactly what do you mean by other sectors in the market?
Other packaged foods or other categories that the FSSAI should be looking at.
Particularly, yes. I understand your question now. I think the first thing that the FSSAI must target, or rather aim at, not target would probably be a negative connotation, but prioritize that all these packaged foods. And nowadays, the way the world is running, nobody has the time to cook, or to spend a lot of time in the kitchen. So everybody is looking for what is called easy way out. So you just open a packet and make something. Now, recently there was this controversy about Maggi noodles also having a very high content of a particular chemical, and ultimately, just very recently, just about 15 days back, the Nestle company, which is marketing Maggi, has won that case where they have been able to convince the National Commission for Consumer Cases that there was no high lead content or a very high MSG in their food product. So having said that, I will say that the first priority should be to control the packaged food, and then also at the same time, all these dhabas and small kiosks which are also flouting the rules, and there are no hygiene levels which are maintained by them. So, quickly they want to sell out good, tasty food. And to make good, tasty food, you just add a lot of oil, or you add a lot of sugar, or you add a lot of salt. And so, I think that all these things also, it is your right to do your business, earn money, but not at the cost of the common man.
And ma'am, that problem only gets exacerbated during festive days, festive season. Yes, and thank you very much for joining. I'll have to cut this conversation short in the interest of time. But we have lots to talk about as far as the overall ministry is concerned. How is the government really looking at overhauling packaged foods business, and of course the other sectors, associated sectors related to it, because we cannot take the health of consumers for granted. On that note, thanks very much for joining us, ma'am. And viewers, it's time for us to slip into a quick break. We'll be back with more news and updates on the other side. Don't go anywhere and stay tuned to ET Now.